Hey guys, sorry about the little break, but I had to basically cut what I thought would be one video into a second video now, and it'll probably might be the same thing for the third film that I talk about. But for this video, I will be talking about the second film that has been a bit of a had a Christmas effect on my life from childhood to adulthood now. And it all has to do with, first I'll ask the question, who likes ghost stories? And if you're guessing A Christmas Carol, no, this is not going down that lane. We are going down the lane of the friendliest ghost of them all, Casper. So this movie, Casper's Haunted Christmas, it's basically what it is. It's about Casper and also about him and his uncles dealing with a situation during Christmas time. And so let me get started, but before I get started, let me get some more gifts out to wrap. Oh. And either way, so Casper's Haunted Christmas is basically starts out with really not a typical like horror-esque or maybe children's scary movie-esque fashion, where we are brought to this haunted mansion that looks very freaky and scary, and it turns out that two guys just talking, and while there's a werewolf that is lurking behind them trying to figure out his tactic of how to snap them off limb by limb. But it turns out that was just a movie that is being watched at a drive-in movie theater, and people are just enjoying a simple night on the town at a drive-in theater. And that's when Casper's uncles, Fatso, Stinky, Stretch, come into play, seeing that this is a good scenery to scare up some folks. And they pretty much do that. People start leaving the drive-in theater and they just start wreaking havoc. And of course, what is Casper doing at this point? He knows that his uncles are up to this, and he comes to the drive-in theater to stop them. But of course, you know that Casper, just trying to do a good deed, never stops his uncles from scaring the living daylights out of folks if they can help it. So basically, everybody just leaves the movie theater scared to death because of ghost. Ghost! Lord. And even at this point in this movie, Casper finds this all too cliche and too boring at this point. Because he's been dealing with it for a long, long time. So when he runs into his uncles, they basically criticize him for trying to stop them from scaring people, and saying that he should be helping them to scare people because that's what they do. They're ghosts. That's what they're about. And lo and behold, someone comes down in a very creepy police ghost car, which that's a first. I never would have thought ghosts would have police, but it turns out to be Snivel. But in this case, Officer Snivel, who has always been known as being an assistant to someone that will be coming up soon. And so when Casper's uncles see him, they're like, it's just Snivel. He's not going to cause any problems for us. And even if we did break a ghostly law, what would he do about it? Pretty much nothing. But then what ends up happening is after some crazy shenanigans to make fun of Snivel, they blow a whistle that and accidentally summon the king of ghosts, Kabosh. And so when he comes, he basically makes Snivel inform Casper of why Snivel is there, and he tells him that he was sent to get Casper, not his uncles. And the reason he sent Snivel to get Casper is because he has a low scaring quota. It's so low, it's not even funny anymore. It's low to the point that it is against the law that he has not scared at least one person a year. That's the ghost law. You must scare at least one person a year. And so Casper, this is definitely a dilemma for him because he does not like scaring people, period. And so what happens is that Kabosh basically gives him and his uncles an ultimatum, telling Casper that if he cannot scare somebody before the year is out or before Christmas Day, he will be sentenced to banishment in the deepest darkness of all time, where there is no time, no space, nothing, everything's just dark and empty. And that will be his prison for all eternity. And also his uncles will be sentenced to the dark because they are his uncles, and he says basically that because they are responsible for him, they have to suffer the consequences as well. And Kabosh kind of just added in that, also, I just don't like you guys. I never liked you guys, so this would be more than fine with me to do it to you anyway. So there you have it. So what ends up happening is that they are, until Casper scares someone, Kabosh banishes all of them to Chris, Massachusetts, which they say is the most Christmassy town in the world, which only further enrages the ghostly trio who hate Christmas. Why am I not surprised that they hate Christmas? Why am I not surprised, y'all? So they are sent to Chris, Massachusetts, and they end up really through a cannon. They were literally just cannoned to that place, and Casper lands at the house of this girl whose family, they are known for making Christmas decorations, and they recently kind of moved to Christmas because they wanted to further their business and also to be in a more Christmassy atmosphere environment of a place. While their daughter, Holly, who is, and her full name, Holly Jollymore, it's definitely not hitting with her. She is kind of embarrassed, in all honesty, that her family has such a extreme love for Christmas, to the point that it even looks like they kind of overdo it. That's what kind of bothers her, is that they overdo their love of Christmas. And so for her, she wishes for any other type of holiday rather than Christmas. And so what looked like to be wishing stars to her, which actually it wasn't, it was just Casper and his uncles shooting through the sky from being shot by a cannon. Casper, after Holly tries to make a wish but realizes the star is coming right towards her, she tries to duck and cover, and Casper lands into the snowman that she makes by her house. But when he gets up and he has the snowman hat on his head, she doesn't assume that he is a ghost. She assumes that he's a talking snowman. And for me, as a kid, this part didn't really freak me out at all, or didn't make me question it at all. But now, as an adult, I'm like, you can see through him, right? He's a ghost. But yet you think he's a snowman. And also, if he is a snowman, why do you never touch him? Why? It, so many different questions. I'm not going to get into that today. But either way, my point. So he's found a new friend. A new friend who thinks that he is a talking snowman. So he just takes this and runs with it to be friends with Holly. And before they could get into a further conversation, Holly's mother, Carol, calls for her, who needs her to help her out at this Christmas play, which is a Christmas production of A Christmas Carol. Not very much a cliche. And so she goes, he stays. Oh, and his uncles land in a mailbox of some sort when they land on to earthly grounds. And they are kind of just wandering around the streets at this point, and they find a sign that says "Ghost Wanted." And it's like, who would make a sign wanting a ghost? But they were like, well, let's check it out. Even though it's against the rules, that's the other part I forgot to mention. It's against the rules for the ghostly trio to scare anyone. They cannot scare anyone because their ghost licenses have been taken from them. And so now they can't scare anyone until Casper scares someone for them and get them out of this jam. So, but at this point, knowing the ghostly trio, if you've seen any of the Casper films or Casper television shows or whatever, you know the ghostly trio are very underhanded and do what they want to do, whether it's against the law or not for them, because that's just who they are. So they're thinking that this Ghost Wanted ad is a bunch of other ghosts who could be a possible posse for them. But then when they go inside to see who the ghosts are, these are just actors in ghost sheets, in bed sheets, or whatever type of sheets, that are auditioning to be the 3 ghosts for A Christmas Carol, where you will find Carol, who is the director, Holly's father, Noel, who is the star of the show, and Holly, who's just there helping out. That is it. And so the ghostly trio realizes that this is basically an audition for a play, nothing more, nothing less. They're not real ghosts. And so they try to show them what being real ghosts look like by scaring the crap out of everyone. And here's the crazy part. Carol, she is not impressed. She is just like, nice try, but that doesn't work for me. And telling them after the end of their auditions that they are not believable enough as ghosts. What? Not believable enough as ghosts? What? Woman, we are... You can imagine the different thoughts roaming around in the ghostly trio's minds, especially Stretch's mind. How can you not notice that we are real ghosts here? Everybody else that we come across in this world knows, but you apparently don't. That is weird. And so, and it turns out she's not the only one. Even her husband, Noel, is convinced that they're just actors that are using some type of advanced Hollywood technology kind of thing going on. Oh, Lord. It was... I'm sorry. I'm trying to sell this, but it is hilarious. But either way, they invite them to stay with them because they heard that they were new to town and they just got there. And so them wanting to allow them to stay there is what the spirit of Christmas is all about, and they are more than willing to do that. And so when Casper wakes up from napping at the new spot where he met Holly at, he goes by the window to her house and sees that his uncles are there as personal guests of his family. I mean, of Holly's family. And this just further complicates things for Casper, because this is just like, all right, should I tell her that I'm a ghost and tell her that she's dealing with my uncles in there? And it's like, right now I'm just gonna play it cool. We'll just play it cool. So he asked her who's her company, and she's like, just some lame actors my dad and my mom invited to stay over with us. And I would invite you in, but of course you're a snowman, and if you came in, you would melt. So sorry. Here's some ice cream. Talk to you later. And so, and so Casper really could not get a word in edgewise this time. But so he starts talking to his younger ghost self. Like, how can you be a Boy Scout when you were a younger ghost? I'm confused. But he starts wondering if he should tell her the truth about what he is, rather than lie to her just for them to be friends. And so he thinks on this. He contemplates it. While Carol and Noel just entertain Stretch, Fatso, and Stinky as their new guest, and also share with them why they love Christmas so much, and basically gets down to the point that at the end of a nice Christmas dinner breakfast thing going down, Holly looks under the table and notices all the food that was left on the floor from where they were eating at. And this puzzles her, kind of like, okay, what in the world is going on? Where did that food come from? And so I think that should be further of a hint to you, sweetheart, that they are not people. They Woo. But moving on, the ghostly trio, they are driving themselves crazy, or being driven crazy from not having any opportunities to scare anyone. This is not normal for them. They scare day in and day out, within the hour, within every minute of the hour. So one of them was like that, so I think he said, we could just sneak out and do one little scare. No one would find out about that, right? Right? Well, it turns out that it's a good thing they haven't done anything yet, because Stinky receives a email on his ghostly laptop, which is actually Kibosh that comes right out of his computer, just checking in on them, making sure that they're not scaring anyone, and making sure that Casper is doing what he's supposed to do, or seeing if he does scare someone. And he sends the email with an attachment. Well, Snivel is the attachment, sending him to look out for the ghostly trio and make sure they're staying out of trouble. And also keeping an eye on Casper if he does scare anybody. And so the ghostly trio, they are having a rough time. Rough time, and it's Christmas time. It's the worst for them. And they're being watched by someone that they despise, Snivel. Lord have mercy. And also they are trying to encourage Casper to scare someone, but he cannot. They tried 3 attempts. First attempt, just taking an ice cream from a little boy. As soon as Casper does that, he gives the ice cream back to the kid. And then on a second attempt, they tried to dysmorphify his face to make him look scary so he could scare people at windows. And that doesn't work. The only thing he ends up scaring is himself because of how he looks. And so his uncles are like, That's it, Casper. You can't do this. You are hopeless. You are not going to scare anyone, and we're all going to end up in the dark. Why? Why, man? And so, seeing to this degree that when it comes to Casper, see, the ghostly trio are realizing that, yeah, Casper is not going to be able to scare anyone. So they need another kind of plan. And they have another plan that maybe they can turn a different ghost into Casper, or make a different ghost pose as Casper to scare someone and help get them out of trouble. And so they think of another nephew of theirs who could help them out, Spooky. And because Spooky looks so much closely identical to Casper, which to me is, now I'm kind of confused, because in Casper, A Spirited Beginning, didn't the ghostly trio just kind of adopt Casper into their family? Casper really wasn't related to them, so how could Casper and Spooky look alike? But then again, that's possible. Even if they weren't related, that still could be possible. And so they contact Spooky up to ask for him to do a scaring gig for them. And to join them, which they weren't going to let Spooky join them anyway, because first, he's too young, and secondly, he's just like, they're good as the ghostly trio. They don't need a ghostly quartet. So, just getting to the point that when it comes down to it, if you want something done, you gotta do it yourself. And that's how the ghostly trio are thinking right now, because they have lost their faith that Casper will scare anyone. So let's just call up Spooky to get him here. And Spooky, he discusses this matter with his girlfriend Foyle, they both are in New York City right now, and they are enjoying their time in New York City scaring the city folks. But yet, Foyle, she's the one who doesn't want him to go. He wants to go to get his shot at being a big-time scarer through his uncles, through the ghostly trio. And Foyle, she's just like, no, we should stay here. Let's just stay here. And, of course, he doesn't listen. So they end up going to Chris, Massachusetts by mail, which was an interesting transportation for a ghost. In all honesty, actually, that is different. So they find a way to distract Snivel by sending him to a festival downtown, and enough time to give Spooky a makeover and make him look like Casper. And it works. He looks and he sounds like Casper. And so they pass him off as Casper to when Snivel comes back, and they try to see if Casper is gonna scare. Casper will scare someone. And each of those attempts that he makes, 3 attempts that Spooky makes at scaring. One, he tries to scare Carol. That didn't work. He tries to scare Noel in the shower. And that really, the shower scene really hinted with some kind of weird psycho vibes, but it was nothing like that, except maybe that's how Spooky felt it was for him, because he was literally just, I won't say. You watch the movie for yourself. You'll see what happens. Oh, God. But either way. So he tries to scare Carol by using some scream. Like, if you've seen the movie Scream, he used the Scream phone call antic to try to scare Carol, and that doesn't scare her not one bit. She just goes along with it. Like, literally, she just goes along with the call. And then Spooky, then the last person he tries to scare is their daughter, Holly, who unbeknownst to him, Holly knows Casper. And so when she sees him, she automatically thinks he is Casper, just trying to play a funny prank or joke on her by trying to scare her. but it doesn't work. And so the ghostly trio, they have just about had it. They are just like, okay, even Spooky is not able to scare anyone. This is just ridiculous. How long can we take this? Because it's also Christmas Eve. So they don't have a lot of time left. So during this little charade deal, with Holly thinking Spooky is Casper, she was wanting to give him a Christmas card, but Spooky just is not in the mood. He is like I am upset that I could not scare you, but and I do not want you to talk to me. I don't want anything to do with you. And also, by the way, your family is weird. They're not normal, and so just screw off, kind of thing. So there you have it. It is not, things have not gone to plan for everyone. And so, and for Holly, who thinks that Spooky is Casper, she is like, okay, you are on some weird, awful attitude here, and you're being very rude to me, insulting me and my family, so I won't bother you anymore. And she tears his Christmas card when she runs into the real Casper. She tears the Christmas card right in front of him and tells him to leave her alone. And in this moment, Foyle comes in and mistakes Casper for Spooky. And so so when he starts telling her that he wants to see what's wrong with Holly, Foyle, automatically thinking that he is Spooky, thinks that Spooky is cheating on her. And so she just leaves with the quickness after that. So, what can you do? Holly's sad now. Her parents come in with trying to cheer her up with eggnog, but they see that something is really wrong with her. And so they ask her, what's going on? Why are you sad? And for once showing actual concern in this film towards their daughter. And she's like, it's nothing, I'm good, don't want to ruin your Christmas, I'm fine. And they're like, look, me and your father may love Christmas, Carol says, but you will always come first before anything. And so she explains to them that a friend of hers is just acting like a real jerk right now, and she doesn't understand why he is. And so they kind of give her kind of like a possible hopeful note that maybe he's just going through something. Maybe that's why he's acting like a jerk at the moment. But give him a chance and see if things will get better. So they leave her room. She continues to lay in her room, and there's this little dream-esque music sequence of a song playing, I Can Be Your Friend, and it turns out the song that seemed like it was just playing in her head or in her dreams was actually playing outside her window with Casper holding up a radio box in his hand, like something out of Say Anything. So I don't know why I'm laughing so much. Please forgive me, y'all. But after he plays that song, he beckons her at her window, first apologizing and telling her that he needs to tell her something. And she's asked him what is going on with him. Why was he acting like such a jerk before? Which he has no idea what she means by that, because that wasn't him. That was Spooky who was acting like a jerk. And so he automatically just takes this opportunity to tell her the truth, that he is not a snowman. He is a ghost. And she's not scared. She's just shocked about it. And before they could actually talk it over, Casper just apologizes and leaves. And now that leaves us back to where his uncles are, trying to figure out how to fix their situation or do something. And their Snivel is just spying on them as ever, not letting them be alone for too long because he knows how they are, just like everybody knows how the ghostly trio is. So what ends up happening? The ghostly trio pull off a little shenanigans. See, the Jollymore family, they have this huge Santa in their front yard that stands very tall, and they turn on the pipe of the Santa to suck in Snivel into Santa. And they basically told him that he can just stay in there for a couple of years and that they'll come back to let him out there. And after they leave him, and even with the whole whistle thing, he can blow the whistle to summon Kibosh, but sadly Kibosh can't hear it because inside the Santa it is too loud that he can't hear the whistle. Of him summoning him. So now the ghostly trio is trying to figure out what they're gonna do to pull off a big scare before they end up being banished to the dark for the rest of their lives. And they come up with an idea to steal all the gifts from everyone at Chris. And I think you know where this is going. It's taking a How the Grinch Stole Christmas vibe. And so that's exactly what the ghostly trio does. They go all over town, steal all the presents, but the only difference is that they take them to the Jollymore's house and put them all there so everyone in town can come over to their house and get the biggest scare of all time by the ghostly trio. And the way they're gonna do that is that Stinky is gonna set off a thing called a time boom, almost like a time bomb, but he says it's scarier. And it will blow the presents up. Oh God, and overhearing this little plan, Spooky is not down with it. He even calls his uncles out on it, saying that this is not regular scaring. This is just you guys being cruel. And they're like, so what? You're not even a part of our gang. So what makes you think your word has any meaning to us? So you're out of here. And also on top of that, we were just using you to pose as Casper to get us out of trouble. We never wanted you to join us. So later, kid. Good luck on, I don't know, Scare Way, or instead of Broadway, Scare Way, or whatever. Come back when you can scare a kitten, whatever. And so Spooky's like, okay, I am gonna get them back for this. Somehow, some way, I am gonna get them back for this. So what ends up happening is that Casper sneaks into Holly's bedroom to give him a homemade Christmas card that he made and sets it on her dresser. And this is where he runs into his cousin Spooky, who explains everything of what's going on, what his uncles are planning to do, and also just to clear the air. So now that Casper knows what's up with his uncles, he wants to stop them. And he says, now it is definitely time to teach my uncles a lesson. And at the same time, he can fulfill what he needs to fulfill before Christmas Day. So they decide to pull off a scare on the ghostly trio. And boy, do they! Because they found out the right thing that scares them. So what ends up happening is that his uncles hear some noise outside of something or someone calling their names from outside. Stretch assumes that is the town calling their names. Like, first and foremost, let me just continue. So they go out to see who it is, and it looks as if it's Kibosh outside. Kibosh outside, waiting for them, asking them that if they were being good and not trying to do anything to the town. And it turns out that Casper, Spooky, and Foil, they set this whole thing up where they covered the huge Santa Claus in front of the Jolly Mars house, and they made it look like it was Kibosh. And this literally scares the trio to a frenzy that they run. So Casper fulfilled what he needed to fulfill. And so now that all that was left was to summon Kibosh. And so what happens is when they accidentally push down the Santa Claus in the front yard, Snivel comes out where the ghostly trio sucked him in, and Casper takes his whistle, blows it to summon Kibosh. And when the trio realizes that they just been played, they go back to try to teach their nephews a lesson. But before they can do that, the real Kibosh is here. But here's the thing. They do not think that he's the real Kibosh. They think that he is just another puppet. And so they start insulting him. They start defiling him and just annoying him. And to the point where they roll him away from the house in some kind of like ghost carpet as fashion. But then they realize, no, that was not a puppet. That was not fake. That was the real Kibosh, who was there to give them all their punishment. But as he does put them in the dark, Casper makes him aware that that was not the reason the whistle was blown. He informs him that he blew the whistle to let him know that he scared his uncles. And with Snivel being in the snowman the whole time, he heard everything that was going down and he saw what went down. So he could confirm that yes, Casper did scare the trio. And so he takes them out of the darkness and basically commands Snivel to give them back their license. But Snivel is kind of like, why do we have to do anything for the trio? It was just Casper who did a good job here. And so, but before he can do that, Kibosh kind of flicks him into the house. And once Snivel is in the house, he sees the time boom and informs Kibosh that it seems like the trio hasn't been following your no scaring order. And so, and as they were almost at the brink of freedom, all of them, what ends up happening is that Snivel suspects that the trio wanted to scare the whole town by going and basically just giving the grandest scare of all time and going out with a bang before being banished to the dark. And so, but the trio, they desperate at this point and not willing to allow their freedom to be truly taken away from them. They are like, that is not what we were doing. This was not for the people. This was not for the fleshies, as they would say. What actually this is a big Christmas gift to Kibosh. For him to enjoy them getting made fools of with all their different booby traps. So in order to prove that was what it was, each of them one by one set all the traps on themselves. And then there's this little cloth thing that's written on it that comes down saying the spirit of scaring Stinky rushes right in to change it from scaring to sharing. And this convinces Kibosh. This, in a strange, almost, I won't say Deus Ex Machina because it is not that, but Kibosh falls for it. And so the trio their licenses are reinstated and given back to them. And Casper is free because he at least scared once this year. And then the rest of the Jolly Mars come down for Christmas to see more ghost actor friends. Actors, not real ghosts. And when Carol sees Kibosh for the first time and sees how he disappears into nothing, she's like, wow, he has better special effects. Maybe he would be perfect for the ghost of Jacob Marley in A Christmas Carol. It's like, you, woman, you still are not convinced these people are ghosts. But either way, so Casper makes them aware that all the presents in their house belong to everyone in Chris, and that they're all probably coming to get their gifts as soon as they wake up, which gives the Jolly Mars a great idea to have the biggest Christmas party in town and to give everybody a wonderful Christmas. And soon Holly comes down and lets Casper know that she does forgive him for what went down, and also, to be honest, she doesn't mind him being a ghost, and that also to thank him for his Christmas card that he gave her. He was just happy that it's okay for them to be friends again. And she is happy that he is the only person who can say that the best gift that she could ever give him was her friendship without sounding so corny. And what could be even more cornier than being under a mistletoe while saying all of this? And so they end up kissing under the mistletoe. And Spooky, who is now back with Poyle gives him the gift of his beloved hat that he always wears, that the ghostly trio threw out when they were trying to disguise him as Casper. So now he gets his hat back and he gets his girlfriend back. And everybody is happy except the ghostly trio, who are like, okay, this is too much mushiness, too much Christmas joy. It's making us sick. So let's get out of here. And before they can get out of there, Noel turns on the ceiling fans, which chops them all up into bits and pieces like snow. And they start floating back down throughout the house. And then Casper closes the movie out with saying, everyone have a Merry Christmas and a Happy Boo Year. And that's the end of the movie. Lord, that movie, to be honest, I definitely found a lot of comedy and laughs from that movie, because it was definitely, and also the CGI at the time, it wasn't the best, if we all know. I mean, the film itself, it came out like, let's see if I can figure out when it came out. 2000. So yeah, CGI technology was not at its peak during that time, but they did offer us some levels of enjoyment, I can admit. So that was the second movie, and thank you for continuing to stay with me on this if you still are here. And the next movie I will be discussing is the third and last movie that has been an impact on my life since childhood, and that I continue to watch even as an adult. And that is Beauty and the Beast Enchanted Christmas. So I wonder, maybe should I do that for for another video, or should I stay on this one? I think I'll make it a third video because that'll give me more time to explain even more in-depth details, because this movie, I remember a lot with this movie because I watched it like 1,000 times more over every year, if you can believe that. So we'll be back with another video, but till then, I bid you all a good day and a Merry Christmas. See you in the next video.